Beyond Tulloch. Scotland is a country that's been scoured by ice. Ice that formed a vast ice cap over northwest Europe sometime between 33,000 and 26,000 years ago. The Scottish ice sheet was still extensive 22,000 years ago, but then it disappeared, only to reappear across the west of Scotland around 13,000 to 11,500 years ago. At times the ice was over 2 kilometres thick. When these last glaciers rapidly melted, the land revealed its new shape of mountains and deep glens like Glen Traig, which you've just passed through, and here at Glen Spean. It's a surprise to many that the scientific understanding of the extent and effect of ice and glaciers was finally deciphered right here in Glen Spean and its tributary Glen Roy in the 1840s. Stewart is a renowned geologist, famous for various TV series about the natural world. We met him to find out more. So we're standing here at Glen Roy now, and in particular we want to discuss the parallel roads. Could you describe how on earth they got here? Because there were things of myth, weren't they, and legend?
I mean, it's funny because I wonder how many people kind of scooting along that valley to the south of Glen Roy realise that up here in the hills there's this mecca. You get this landscape, it just opens out here, but you see cutting across it 3 lines on the hillside. And they've invited mystery from right at the start. You know, people used to think that it was the roads carved by the early kings of Scotland, or that it was Fingal's, that mythical hero Fingal carved them. But about the 18th century, people started realising they must be natural. And then into the 1800s, these theories came out about how it could be. And someone had said about a lake, maybe it was an ancient lake, but it wasn't really tied down how it worked. And actually the person who really put the cat amongst the pigeons about it really was Charles Darwin. So you've got to imagine, Charles Darwin has been off on the Beagle in Patagonia for years and comes back, and one of the first things he does when he comes back in Britain is he goes up here to Glen Roy, and he decides that he understands what they are, because it's very similar to things he's seen in Patagonia. They're marine beaches, he says, and what it's telling us is that the land has risen out of the sea and carved a series of kind of etched lines, like strand lines. Imagine your bath, as you've drained a bath, and those kind of marks around the edge, because the land has risen up. And so he comes here and he says, no, what this is about tectonics. It's the mountains getting uplifted out of the sea. And a year later, someone else comes along, and he's an interesting chap. Louis Agassiz from Switzerland has got a big theory, and his theory is that the planet has been encased in ice, has had ice across it. And he's realised that because there's glaciers in Switzerland, but he finds evidence of glaciers way beyond where they are. And so he said, look, in the past, ice covered this whole area. So to nail that, he's got to go somewhere where clearly there isn't even ice today. So he goes to Scotland. And the account is that he comes up to, he's got various places through the Highlands, and he comes with a guy called William Buckland, and he comes here, and he looks at this, and he says, well, this is just a valley that's been dammed by ice, and it's created a lake behind it. And the lake has carved these etched lines. Back then, the whole landscape was interpreted as the biblical flood. So people would go around the landscape tying down which part of the flood it was, the Great Deluge. So Glen Roy was one of the first test cases in trying to think that there was processes other than floodwater, because they were talking about ice. So Agassiz's claim was pretty dramatic. It's so unassuming, really. Here it is, this kind of empty place, empty slopes. But if you look at it here, you can see a jumble of hills in the early part. That's where the glacier reached. And then there's a beautiful, smooth valley that continues on. And that would have been a big lake, huge glacial blue lake. And you can see the side the little streams coming down today, and you get these slopes that come into it. And there would have been fans of debris coming in. And underwater fans, submarine fans. So the whole landscape is just completely different to what it is today. So that's what's really special about this place.